What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to my devlog. This should be a fairly simple video. I'm just going to go over the recoil and aiming system that I built. So let's get into it. Alright, so just to briefly show you what this looks like. Alright. Recoil. Perfect. Alright, so if we take a look at these scripts, we'll start with the weapon recoil. So basically I built this with the Lerp function, and what that does is take 2 points and moves an object from point A to B over a specified amount of time. Alright, so we do have a few variables to define at the top here. So we have private vector 3 start position, so position A, end position, position B, and then you're probably not going to need this. I have it current position. I'll show you at the bottom where I use that, and then a public float for speed, and I have it named speed, but really this is the duration of the movement. So how long it's gonna, it's speed, but it's really how long it's gonna take the object to go from A to B, and then the elapsed time, and then I have elapsed time 2, because we are lerping back from the end position to the start position, but you'll see that at the bottom. All right, and then I have a public float named recoil distance. So there are a handful of ways to define the positions of the lerp function. The way I wrote it here, I need a float to pass into the vector 3, but you'll see that in a second. And then I have a bool named shooting, which is going to trigger all of the functions. And then if you look here, I have public vector 3 up recoil, vector 3 original rotation. This right here is just going to add a little bit of rotation to the gun as well. Alright, so in the start method, we're going to set the shooting bool to false. Start position equals transform.local position. So the start position is the position of the gun, where it currently is at the start of the script. And the reason why we put local position is because we need it relative to the character. If we put just transform.position, then it would just be within the world space, and obviously that's not going to work. And then same thing for the rotation. Original rotation equals transform.local Euler angles. That just sets the start rotation of the gun to its current rotation. Alright, and now if we scroll down to the update method, you'll see I have the end position defined as the start position plus a new vector 3. And then I only want to move it along the z-axis, right? Because the gun is going to go back for the recoil. So I have start position plus new vector 3, 0, 0, and then negative whatever the recoil distance float is set to. And the reason why I placed this in the update method is so that I can continuously change this float in the inspector if I need to, and it'll update. And then same thing with the current position, equals transform.local position placed in the update method so that it continuously updates with the movement. And you'll see in the weapon aim script this is a lot more effective, but we'll get to that. Alright, so for those that aren't too familiar with Lerp, I mean, it may seem kind of complicated in the beginning, but once you get used to where everything goes, it's actually not that bad. So I have to start here in if statement, if shooting, so if that bool shooting is set to true, and the transform.local position does not equal the end position, we're going to trigger the Lerp function. Okay, so first we need to start adding seconds to the elapsed time. So we're going to write elapsed time plus equals time dot delta time, and then float percentage complete equals elapsed time divided by speed. So the way this works, if you look here for the actual lerp function, you have the position A, position B, and then percentage complete. Okay, and this variable represented by t in the official lerp equation is clamped between 0 and 1. So 0 means it has not moved at all. 0.5 means it's halfway in between the start position and end position, and then 1 means it's fully at the end position. So this is why I was saying before, this speed variable is more of a duration. If you look at the simple math, right, and you say you want the speed set to 1, okay, 1 divided by 1 equals 1. So it would take the elapsed time 1 second to make the object reach the end position. But now let's say we wanted the speed set to 10, right? 10 divided by 10 is 1. So it would take the elapsed time 10 seconds to reach the end position. So basically, the higher this number, the longer it takes the object to move from point A to B. All right. All right, and then again, we write the actual lerp function, transform.localPosition equals vector3.lerp, start position, end position, which is the start position plus a negative z movement, and then percentage complete. And then for the rotation, transform.local Euler angles plus equals up recoil. So we're taking that original rotation and just adding a vector 3, which is going to be set in the inspector. Okay, so now we do have to write out another lerp function to basically make the gun go back to its original position. Alright, so I have another if statement here that reads, if we're not shooting and transform.localPosition does not equal start position, and then same thing inside the lerp function, and this shooting bool is set back to false here. You see I have if transform.localPosition equals end position. So once the position of the gun reaches the end position, shooting becomes false again. Alright, and the only, I guess, kind of tricky thing with this is the elapsed time does not reset itself. So once the lerp function occurs, whatever that time is, it's gonna stay that way unless you tell it otherwise. Alright, so if you take a look, you'll see that the elapsed time 2 is going to be used for the lerp back function. Alright, so in this first if statement, underneath the elapsed time plus equals time dot delta time, I just make sure that the elapsed time 2 is set to 0, and then on the second lerp function, you'll see I have elapsed time 2 plus equals time dot delta time, and then underneath that I have the first elapsed time set back to 0, so that we can continuously perform these lerp functions. And then everything else is pretty much the same. I have a new float percentage complete 2 equals elapsed time 2 divided by, again, that speed or duration. And now for the actual lerp function, we basically just write everything backwards. So we have you can do, there's a couple ways you can do it. You'll see in the aim, I got used to writing current position. It makes much more sense, again, in the weapon aim. But I have current position, start position, and then percentage complete 2. So we're going from the current position, or if you want to use the end position, back to the start position. And that'll complete the weapon recoil. And then for the rotation, we just have transform.local Euler angles equals original rotation. So take the rotation of the gun and set it back to the original rotation. Alright, so that's everything for the weapon recoil. But now, how do we actually trigger this, right? The shooting bool, setting it to true. So in the universal gun script, I am referencing this updated weapon recoil script. You see at the top here. So I have two. I have updated weapon recoil, one for the primary, and then one for the secondary, and you'll see in the inspector how I have it set up. But now, and then I'm setting this to private because again, if you remember from my previous videos, this script is already attached to the prefabs, so objects and things that are scene dependent can only be grabbed by using tags. Alright, so it's actually in the update method. So if you remember how I set it all up with the tags for each specific gun, I have it placed in there. So if any of the tags belong to the primary weapon, then we're going to grab the primary weapon recoil script. And then same thing for the secondary. Gotta find secondary. Okay, so yeah, the CZ99 is the handgun secondary. Okay. And if we scroll down to the shoot method, you'll see inside all of these if statements. Again, for each gun, we just have a statement that sets the bool of the updated weapon recoil script to true. So primary weapon recoil dot shooting equals true. And then same thing, let's see, M40 primary weapon recoil dot shooting equals true. And then for the CZ, we have secondary weapon recoil dot shooting equals true. Alright. Alright, so just to briefly show you why I have two references to the scripts, let's go to inspector. So here's the setup of all of the gun positions. You'll see I have the main parent underneath main camera gun holders, and then I have, let's close this so you can see it better. So I have primary and secondary, right? And then underneath that, I created an empty game object for the weapon recoil, right? It's good to have these functions live on in a game object that's dedicated to just this. So underneath primary, you see I have primary weapon recoil, and then underneath that, all of the primary weapons. And then secondary recoil. See, updated weapon recoil scripts, and then all of the secondary. So any of the secondary guns are referencing this one, and then any of the primary guns are referencing this one. Alright, so if we jump into the weapon aim script, you'll see everything is relatively the same as the recoil. Again, we're using the Lerp function. So at the top here we have the few variables. Private vector 3 hit position, that's going to be our start position. Private vector 3 aim position, the end position. Private vector 3 current position. And then public game object weapon aim location. So instead of making the end position the start position plus or minus whatever movement, we're gonna make the aim position in actual game object location. Alright, and underneath that we have the floats for the aim speed and elapsed time. And the speed I made 2 so that I can separately control from hip to aim and aim to hip speed. Right, we actually don't need this or these two. Get rid of it down here. Perfect. And the reason why we have a start rotation variable is so that we can change the rotation of the gun to match the rotation of the weapon aim location. And then finally we have a bool for aiming, which is going to be set to false initially. Alright, and in the start method, we have start rotation equals transform.local rotation. So this is going to be the initial rotation of the gun holder relative to the parent object. And then same thing with the hit position, transform.local position, the initial position of the weapon holder. Alright, so in the update method, we have current position equals transform.local position, and then aim position equals weapon aim location dot transform dot local position. So we're taking the weapon aim game object and just grabbing the position of it, and that's going to be the aim position. Alright, so now again we have another if statement. If input.get mouse button 1, so that's the right mouse button, we set the aiming bool to true, and then same thing, we're gonna lerp from the hit position to the aim position. Alright, so we have aim elapsed time 1 plus equals time.delta time, set the elapsed time 2 to 0, float percentage complete equals aim elapsed time 1 divided by aim speed, or again duration if you want to call it that. Then the actual lerp function is going to be transform.local position equals vector 3.lerp hit position aim position percentage complete. And then for the rotation, transform.local rotation equals weapon aim location dot transform dot local rotation. So we're setting the rotation of the gun holder to whatever the rotation of the weapon aim game object is. You'll see if you set this up yourself, sometimes when transitioning from hip to aim, it might be a little bit off-centered. So having this here will help you kind of rebalance that. Alright, and then underneath this we have another if statement, if input.get mouse button up. So if we release the right mouse button, aiming is no longer true. We set it to false. And then underneath that, if aiming is not true, we're going to do another lerp function back to the hit position. Alright, so we have aim elapsed time 2 plus equals time.delta time, and then again we got to set the original elapsed time back to 0 so we can continuously go back and forth. Float percentage complete 2 equals aim elapsed time 2 divided by aim speed 2. And then this is where using current position as opposed to a defined end position is better in my opinion. So we have transform.local position equals vector 3.lerp current position back to hit position percentage complete 2. So when aiming, right, if you let go of the aim button before you reach the aiming destination, you want it to smoothly transition back to the hit position no matter where the gun is being held, right, and vice versa. So let's say you're going back to the hit position and then you press the aim button again. If you're only halfway back to the aim position, you want it to smoothly go back to the aim position. If you were to use a defined end position, let's say you are aiming, right, and you're halfway to the end position, right, and then you let go of the aim button, it's going to perform this lerp function, but instead of smoothly transitioning from where you're currently positioned back to the hit position, it's going to snap to the end position and then lerp to the hit position. So that's going to look choppy. Obviously, like, you don't really want that. So in my opinion, it's better to do this current position. Alright, and then finally, transform.local rotation is set back to that start rotation. Alright, and that's pretty much it for the weapon aim. Just to show you briefly where I have it set up in the inspector. So I have the weapon aim script attached to each gun hold position. So you'll see Ithaca hold, weapon aim, AA, weapon aim, and all the way down. And what I did was reference the weapon aim script similar to the weapon recoil inside the universal gun script. Yep, here they are. Weapon aim, Ithaca aim scripts, AA aim script, UMP aim script, and all the way down. And what I did to not cause any errors, because again, items or objects cannot be grabbed using a tag if they're not active in the hierarchy. So again, remember, when you purchase or equip a primary weapon, the secondary weapon slot gets turned off, and then vice versa. So we have to make sure to only grab the respective ones. So I have an if statement in the start method. If primary weapon slot does not equal null, so if we're purchasing or equipping a primary weapon, we're going to grab all of the primary aim scripts. And then same thing for secondary. If secondary weapon slot does not equal null, grab all of the secondary aim scripts. Alright, and to make sure I'm only turning one script on at a time, inside each tag statement I have all of the aim scripts. I set all of them to false except for the weapon that I purchased or equipped. So you see here I have this is for the Ithaca equip. I have Ithaca aim script .enabled equals true. Everything else is false. AA12 true. Everything else is false. And since this is written in the update method, unless specified otherwise, it's going to continuously do this. So for performance sake, we only want it to perform this one time. So what I did was create a bool, equipping gun. I set it to false in the start method. And inside this if statement, I have if equipping gun is false and transform.tag equals Ithaca. Inside this statement, we set the equipping gun bool to true, right? And then we return it. It's no longer going to do this, right? So it does it the one time, sets it to true, and then we're done. Same thing, AA12 sets it to true, and all the way down. Alright, so if we jump back into the project, you'll see here, I'll show you where I have all of the actual aim game objects. So underneath the primary weapon slot, you see all of the weapon hold locations. You'll see underneath that I have pretty much the same thing, an empty game object for each of the guns, Ithaca aim, AA aim, UMP aim, and I placed it pretty much in the middle of your character and a little bit up. So, you know, if they're holding the gun right in front of you. And then you'll see on the weapon aim script, I have the corresponding position placed inside the weapon aim location, and then this is going to be the position that we lerp to when we aim. So you see here, Ithaca aim, Uzi, we have the Uzi spot, MP5, P5 aim, and then same thing for the secondary positions. CZ hold, CZ aim position. Alright, so if we just take a look at this, it's an AK, and we'll do it MP5. Perfect. Perfect. Alright, and the last thing I want to show you, as I mentioned last week, I needed to make a new model, my own model of the automatic turret and the flamethrower. So let's take a look. You see here is the turret. Kind of basic, you know, but I definitely will work on it as time goes on. And then let me show you the flamethrower. Alright. Flamethrower right here. Flamethrower over here. It's not really textured, just has a, you know, basic gray and white on it. But yeah, perfect. Alright, so that is pretty much it for this week's devlog. I know the aiming and recoil systems are pretty basic. I definitely want to upgrade that. As I'm sure you know, there's many different forms of recoil and little things to add that make the game feel a lot better. So I'll definitely be working on that as time goes on. And for next week, I will be adding back all of the damage and actually being able to fight the zombies. So I have to set up a damage system on all of these guns within that new universal gun script I made. I have to set damage up for the turret, for the flamethrowers. I have to fix the grenade system. I don't know if you remember in the beginning episode, I showcased throwing a couple grenades and they weren't exploding. There's some kind of bug there that I have to fix. But yeah, definitely excited for next week. Hope you enjoyed the video and stay tuned for more. Thank you.